So, okay, well, let's get going then. I'm going to do my little introduction again of who I am so it seems legit. Okay. All right, everyone. I'm Caitlin Moore. Thanks for joining me today. We're going to be talking about financial aid and student loans. I'm going to explain them. So there's a lot of things that go into financial aid and what that looks like as you're preparing for college, even when you're in college. This is a not all-encompassing kind of webinar about it. There's a lot of resources that I'll talk about within this webinar about student aid and stuff, but it's really just an overview so that we can learn the language, because as you get to schooling age or you're a young adult, it's really hard to navigate if you don't speak the language, if you don't understand what certain things mean. And that's really what we're going to talk about. Feel free to chime in. This can be a lot of information. So if there's questions, please do. If you have questions later, if you're watching this on a later time and you have questions, feel free. We've got some really great connections at UBT for like with Nelnet and other places that will just simply talk to you and explain things. So really great options there if you do have some extra questions. So let's get going with everything. Let's talk some definitions right now. These are the things that you're really going to hear a lot about as you're preparing for college, or even, you know, SCC if you're doing some prereqs at SCC, or trade school, which is not a bad idea. I'm a huge fan of trade school. So going to SCC's program for like their welding or cooking or anything like that, phenomenal program over there. And there's a lot of financial support that goes into those. And there's a lot of things that you're avoiding by going there, which is a lot of financial debt by going and learning a trade, making some money. Even if you choose to go back to college later, you could possibly just pay your way through college because you have a good job at the other end of that. So big fan of SCC, big fan of their trade schools over there, or even Job Corps, another awesome thing that we have here in the Midwest. So, but let's talk definitions. So scholarships, we hear that a lot. That's a grant or a payment made to support a student's education. It's awarded based on academic or other achievements. So a scholarship is essentially free money. It's someone saying, because you are really good in this academic area, so math or reading or something like that, I'm going to give you some free money. Or you could be really good at sports, or you're on the chess team, or you're a good runner, and people recognize that you're good at this one thing, and so they're going to pay your way through college. Oftentimes there's a stipulation with that where, hey, I'll pay your way if you'll go to this school. So all the Husker football players are usually on scholarship, but the payment is that they're going to play football for UNL, but they're going to get their education paid for. That comes in scholarship form. But there are a lot of scholarships out there that go untouched because people don't know to apply for them. So as you're thinking about school, or when you're in school, look for scholarships. They have scholarships out there for anything. You could have blue eyes, brown eyes, you could have blonde hair, brown hair. It doesn't matter. There's if you're left-handed, there's some scholarships out there for you. If you're adopted, if you've ever been in the foster care system, you may not even have aged out or been adopted. You could have gone home successfully. But if you were in foster care after the age of 13, there are specific scholarships and grants out there for you to basically pay your way through college. And SCC knows about those, and UNL does too, and they're a great resource to find those. So scholarships are free money. You never have to pay them back. And they're based off really random things. So get creative when you're looking for scholarships, and just I'll have some information on where to look for scholarships, but think of strengths, think of things that you're good at, and look for scholarships. A lot of them, you may have to write a paper, so many words about why you would qualify for this. If you've dealt with a lot of adversity in your life, there's scholarships out there for you. So be looking for that, because it's free money. They send it to the school you're going to, it's applied to your account, and boom, you're done. There are some scholarships that go into your pocket too. They say, here, I'm going to give this to you so you could buy pencils and paper, and you could get some free money in your hands too. So that's a big one when going to school. Definitely you want to look for that. And you could do that your whole education. You can continue to look for these. I've heard of people filling out 300 applications for scholarships to get their education paid for. They just kept doing it and doing it and doing it, and they did it. So definitely look for those. A grant is something similar. It's a sum of money given by the government or another organization for a particular purpose. So grants are free money. And it's a little bit different than scholarships because there's usually a purpose involved. It's not just for random things. There's usually like Bill Gates Fund, they give grants and scholarships, but the grants, that's something particular. They only give it for a particular reason. You can't just go and apply for something for any old reason. I'm going to college, I need some money. They're saying this is for something. So they might say, I'll give you a grant for your books, or I'll give you a grant so that you could take this one class, or and we'll talk about FAFSA, but when you fill some stuff out, the government looks at your situation. If you're single or married or live with your parents, if you're dependent on something or independent, they'll look at your income level in your household, and they'll say, hey, for this reason, I'm going to give you some money to help you out. So grants are also free money. Definitely look for those, but they're usually a little more narrowed focused when looking for extra money. A Pell Grant is the federal grant awarded for students for post-secondary education, so college, universities, and career schools. So SEC would be one of those, trade schools in particular. They're awarded based on financial need. So they, like I said, with FAFSA, which we'll go through, you're giving them your household information saying, as a household, we make this much money, and they'll say, hey, you need this more than this person because you have less. So let's give you a little bit more. And it helps you get through school based on if you need it or not. So for example, when I was in college, I went to college for 2 years before I got married, and I would fill out this form and they would give me, my Pell Grant would be very little money because my parents, they didn't make a ton, but they made enough. But then when I got married, I filled this out and we didn't make anything. And now I'm not dependent on my parents. I'm married, so it's different. And I started getting a lot of Pell Grants because we were broke. And so there's a difference in your household income just based on who you're living with. And that can change every single year for you. So you might qualify for extra Pell Grants just based on your situation changes with finances. So we never skip that. Schools don't allow you to skip this, and we'll get to the pieces of that puzzle. Moving into loans, though, there are federal loans. There's a lot of other types of loans, but loans are given by the federal government for college. So it's a specific type of loan. Federal loans are better than private loans because the government makes you pay less interest for this loan. So loans would be borrowed money that you're paying back with some interest. Federal loans are usually a lot better. Like right now, this past year, because of the CARES Act, no one has had to pay back their federal loans. So like for me, I have federal loans for my college years and I haven't had to pay anything. I could, but I haven't had to. But the federal government can't mandate or can't allow private loan, or they can't say one way or the other if private loans could do that. So I have been having to pay on my private loans, but not my federal. So the federal government has a little more flexibility on repayment, which really helps. Especially right out of college when you're not making a lot of money yet or anything like that. So federal loans are usually the way to go, but doesn't always suit everybody's needs either. Some other ways to make money are work study. So this is part-time employment from the school that you're going to. And they give part-time employment to the students with the highest need. So they're going to look at your financial situation, your home situation, and go, hey, does this person need a job more than this other? And the perk of having a part-time job on campus is they try to put you, they usually only have a certain amount of these jobs, but you could say, I really want to work in this department. Maybe you're going to school to become like an HR person, like you really want to get into that, or an accountant. And they're going to try to put you in that part of the college so that you can get some experience under your belt too. So maybe you're working, in something in their financial department. So you're getting used to the numbers and working that while you're going to school. So they're paying you, usually it's part-time, they're going to pay you in they're going to give you a paycheck, but they're also going to put money towards your education. Now, some of them only put it towards education, so you never get a paycheck, but it's to help you get through school with a job, with experience. So it's something to look at every school that you might consider is what their work study programs look like, because especially if you don't have a car or you want to live on campus or you don't want to go far, it's great because you can go to school and work on the same campus. They're usually limited. They're open for the students that have higher needs first, higher financial needs first, but always ask about those. Even if you're just considering what school to go to, but you know you're probably going to need that part-time job on the side. So work study provides you with funds, money for school from the school itself, which is really nice. I mentioned before private loans. This is another loan program. There's companies out there that are considered private because they're not owned by the government. So they're just financial institutions that loan money so that you could go to school. And once you're done with school, you have to pay it back. These usually have higher interest rates, not all the time, but they have a lot more rules around your repayment program too. So they're a little less flexible with some things, but a lot of people end up having private loans and federal loans, a little mixed bag, but just know that private loans are a little more strict because they're allowed to be. They're allowed to make their own rules and decide who gets the money, who doesn't, how they want to be paid back, things like that. But that isn't an option if you're looking for the loan route. There's also loans that parents sign on the loan with their child, or they take a loan out on their child's behalf, and that's a Parent Plus loan. So that would be like my mom and dad saying, hey, I want Caitlin to go to college, so I'll take out an education loan in my name for her to go to school. That not every person is able to do this because not a lot of parents will do this, or maybe you don't have parents in your life or guardians that can or would be eligible, and that's okay. It's just an option to go to school if your parents are willing to help you with that. So I have a bunch of different types of loans. I've had them over the years. My parents signed on a Parent Plus loan. So they took out a loan on my behalf, but they told me I had to pay it back. So even though my name's not on it, I have to pay it back. But if I decided I wanted to stop paying on it, they would be held responsible. And that's where sometimes parents don't want to do this because they don't want to be held responsible if you don't pay it back. So it's just one of those that there's a lot of qualifications that go into this. Not every parent's eligible, but not every parent wants to do this, but it is another route. FAFSA. So this is something I mentioned several times. This stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. So what this is a free application that almost every college, trade school, community college will make you fill out. It's all online to get government student aid. It's specifically for the government to give you aid, to give you those Pell Grants. And it's an application. It doesn't take that much time, but you do have to redo it every year, sometimes every semester. You have to go back in there and update your information. They want to know what your household looks like. So if you live with your parents or guardians, what does this look like? What is the responsibilities, the financial responsibilities that your household already has? And then they take that and they say, how much can this family really afford when it comes to college? And then they put you kind of in this ranking position and say, well, Amy needs this a little bit more than Sarah. So we're going to give more money to Amy because her circumstances are different, or vice versa. I wasn't trying to call you out because she's your boss, but I'm just saying when comparing, they just decide who needs this more, and we're going to give money to the person that needs it more. It doesn't mean that Sarah won't get anything. It just means that between the two, they're going to rank differently. And then Dan may not qualify at all. He may just be a millionaire, and the expectation is he needs to pay his way through college. There isn't any reason that Dan shouldn't. So he's just going to get booted off the list completely because he just doesn't need it. So, but then next year, when we all fill this out again, Amy may have become the millionaire and doesn't qualify for anything. Sarah lost her job, so she really needs help. And Dan, spent all of his money, and so he needs some help too. So every year this stuff changes, and so it's super important. This is why they make you fill it out, to go in there and redo your information, because they're going to give you free money. It is free money, no strings attached, for your education. So I know that with PALS, you all help with that process. I've worked with you all enough to know that this is big for you to help them. I know that there's a representative at SCC and UNL that you could just go to, and they will walk. They are experts at this. So if you're independent in the future, the young people that are listening, you can still navigate through this by just going to the school and going, I need to fill this out and I don't know what I'm doing. And they're going to help you do it because you get free money. Don't take free money off the table. Always grab the free money where you can get it. So super, super important when it comes to federal loans and federal grants and aid that you could be getting. I'm going to pause here. Does anybody have any questions on what we have talked about? Those on the line? No? Cool. Okay, so we're going to get into some more specific types of loans. This is within the realm of there's federal and there's private, but there's types of loans underneath this and what they mean. So we're going to go through some of these. This is where go back and look at this information, research it a little bit, because different types of loans are good for different types of people, but it's super confusing. So this is really just an overview. So a Stafford or a direct loan, this is a fixed rate federal loan. And these are available to both undergraduate and graduate. So I'm going to college, I'm going to get my master's degree, and I'm looking for a loan, but I want a federal loan. I want the government to give me a loan because I know it's probably going to be a little bit better as far as repayment and my interest rate. So I'm going to try to get a Stafford or a direct loan. Fixed rate, for those of you who don't know, you either have a fixed rate or a variable rate. And this is the percent that you're going to pay back with your loan. So you take out $20,000, but you're probably going to owe $20,000 and a certain amount. And this is where fixed and variable matter. So a fixed means when you take out the loan, they're going to tell you, you're going to owe me $20,000 plus 3%. That's how much we're going to charge you. Every year, we're going to charge you 3% on this loan. But a variable rate will say, this year, maybe 3, next month, it may be 6. Next year, I have no idea because we don't know what the rates are going to be. So it fluctuates. So you may owe $20,000, but you could owe way more at some point and then way less at some point because of just how variable rates work. So variable rates are usually really good for the first 6 months. I think there's a law in there that says 3 to 6 months. They have to tell you exactly how much you're going to be charged. And then after that, depending on where they get their rates from, I think it's a European group that kind of sets the tone for how much variable rates go up and down. A lot of places look to them, and it just depends on what the world's looking like. It depends on where interest rates are. So variable rates always look appealing at the beginning. They're usually advertised as a lower than a fixed rate, but they will go up and down every month or every year or every 60 days. If you're going to go with a variable rate, you need to look at how they charge you, how often they change it, how often they're allowed to change it, who is deciding what that rate will be. Because if you're looking at a European group, the way they do everything is different than the US. And so you're being charged according to a company overseas. So you have to look into these type of little things. But fixed rate may be a little bit higher, but it's always going to be that way. So you know what to expect, and that will never change. And that's why it's a good idea to go fixed rate. And that goes for car loans, mortgages when you buy a house, a credit card, anything. Fixed rate will always be the same, no matter how much the world around us changes. So it's a better way to go. So the Stafford loan and direct loan come from the government, and it's a fixed rate, so it will never change. And that's what's good about this loan. I feel a little passionate about this today, everyone. Probably because I have student loans. Okay, subsidized loans, they offer better terms, meaning their rules to help students with financial needs. These are loans given to students while they're in school, and the government pays the loan interest. So this is a loan that you get while you're in school. The more financial needs you have, the more likely you will to get this subsidized loan. So they're saying you have to have certain qualifications in order to get this loan. but they do a better term. So it might be better interest rate in the long run, and the government is actually going to pay on your interest while you're in school. So if I took out a student loan now and I went for 4 more years, I wouldn't have to pay anything on it. So the interest rate is stacking up. But with these subsidized loans, the government's paying on the interest. So my total isn't changing. It's not going up with interest because the interest isn't being applied. So that's a perk of this. But again, it goes for folks with really a lot more financial needs than everyone else. So they're going to make you do the FAFSA and see if you qualify for a subsidized loan. Unsubsidized loan is there's no specific financial need. Anybody could apply for an unsubsidized loans, and interest must be paid while the child or the student is in school. So same scenario, but you are held responsible to pay on the interest that is accruing during school. So even though you're not paying your loan back, you are paying on a monthly basis all the interest that you're being paid. So it is kind of a nice loan to have if you can afford to do it, because at the end of your schooling, you don't have all this interest that's been stacked up. So you're not paying on that anymore. The downfall is if you don't have extra money, this might not be a good idea for you because you have to pay something during your education. So a couple of these, again, it gets really confusing. So definitely whoever you go through to get a loan, ask questions. Ask, when do I have to repay this? Is someone helping me with the interest? Do I have to pay the interest now? What's the repayment plan? Things like that. So these type of loans, you need to ask questions, become an expert in them, because it will affect you and your paycheck when you're out of school and you're in a career. It will absolutely affect you. I had no idea at the time when I was in school that the school loans I was taking would be as much as they are to pay back. I had no idea. No one taught me. I didn't even think to ask a question. And now I graduated from my undergrad probably like almost, it's been over 10 years. And I have school loans every month, but it's amazing how little I knew compared to now. And I kick myself for where I'm at because of it, because no one informed me. So ask questions. Become an expert, because ultimately this is money you are spending out of your own pocket, and you should have power and control over where you spend your money. So ask the questions.
Caitlin, I was just going to add, my parents did not do that plus loan for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked them to because I wanted to feel more secure in my living situation in college. And they told me no, that they did not feel comfortable doing that. And, looking back on it now, I struggled more financially in college. I had to work a lot harder to pay for my bills. But now that I know I have less debt for loans, I appreciate that they told me no at the time.
Yeah.
But at the time, I did not appreciate it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I do want to just validate folks out there that you're taking a loan because it's the only thing you can do. You don't have support behind you. You don't have security of, financial help. You're not alone in that. And that's why these loans exist, because they're making it, industries have, like the government and the private sector of loans have made it possible for you to go to school because you don't have help on the other side. So there's just a lot of options, and I'm just encouraging you to take note of what those options are and find one that fits you the best. Because at the end of the day, a loan is a loan. It's going to pay for your school, but are you paying it back now? Are you paying interest? How much is your interest going to be? Those are things that will affect you either now or later. So it's very, very important to look into this stuff. Moving on, thanks, Sarah, for that too. Moving on to different types of scholarships. This is where you definitely want to look into these ideas. So like I said, there's a lot of scholarships for a lot of weird things out there. So look into these if you fit into any of them. So individual, career focused. If you want to be a doctor, a nurse, usually in the medical field, there's a lot more scholarships for you out there. Because it's such an expensive schooling. A lot of times though, with those things, you've got to have really good grades, and maybe it's particular to the school you're going to, things like that. But they have scholarships specifically, I want to go into welding. What's a scholarship I could get? Just put your career goals in there and see if you can get the scholarship for it. But it might only be eligible for certain classes. So you can't use this money everywhere, but you could use it to pay for your welding classes because it's a welding scholarship. There's career exchange scholarships. So this is when a company says, hey, if you'll come work for me, I'll give you extra money to go to school. Some places like the National Health Service Corps gives full ride scholarships in exchange for 2 years of service. So if you are willing to sign up with them for 2 years to work for them after college or during, they'll give you full ride scholarships. And I'm not exactly sure what they do. I'm guessing it's health industry, but great way to do it. Career exchange also applies to when you're working for a company. A lot of times that they'll pay for schooling as long as it's within your company's kind of what they do. So for me at a bank, I could go back to school and my company pays a portion of a certain amount every year, but it has to be in something banking or business related. I can't just go because I want to be a photographer. They're not going to pay for that. They're only going to do it because I'm doing it in like leadership or wealth management or something like that. Something that applies to the bank because they're saying, we want you to be better at your job, but we want you to be here. We don't want to lose you. We'll pay for your school if you stay here. So that's something, if you have a job, ask the question, hey, do you give any money towards school? There's a lot of jobs out there, minimum wage jobs, that will help put you through school. Walmart has a really great program for going to school. They will help you get through school. It might take a little bit longer than just going to a 4-year university because you're working at the same time, but there's a lot of really great companies out there that want you to go to school and will pay for you to go to school if you work for them. So definitely ask those questions no matter where you are. I believe it's Wendy's or Burger King. There's a fast food restaurant out there that pays a significant amount of money for students to go to school as long as they work for them a certain amount of, maybe they have to be there a certain amount of time, but also work a certain number of hours. So take advantage of those things and ask those questions. Athletic scholarships, I feel like in Nebraska, we're all very familiar with that because of Huskers. But if you're really good in sports, you could get a scholarship. They'll pay your way through college if you work for them. So definitely, if that's your niche, go for it. Try to get a scholarship. Merit scholarships are awarded based on the best in certain areas. So if you're really good in academics, volunteerism, skills, talent, dedication, this is kind of it's almost like your personality trait. They're awarding you on how much you do within that. So if you volunteer all through high school or even in college, you could get some extra money just for having done that. So just because maybe you don't have a skill, like maybe you're not really good at sports or you're not really good at these, being in clubs. If you volunteer and give your time, there's still a way to be awarded scholarships. And then there's a lot of those random ones this is where I really encourage you to do some research. There's scholarships out there for religion, ancestry, heritage, areas of study. So if you want to go into a particular major, adoption, foster care, financial situation, contests, there's a ton of things out there. There's no limit. And I have heard there's billions of dollars in scholarships that go untouched every year because people just don't know where to look. So just look for them. There's no limit to the money you could get based off of who you are. So look into it. Be unique and think of your unique differences and look into how you can get free money for being who you are. This is some information that I can send you, Sarah, to send off. Just information about where to look for scholarships are kind of the top sites to look at, especially scholarships.com. To me, that website looks like a fake website. Like it looks like just an advertise. It's actually like the number one go-to for scholarships. So though it looks a little weird, still go for it. So I won't go through all these, but we talked about work study. Just want to let you know, a little bit more. It's a federal program. So colleges, though they're doing the work study, you're working for them, they actually get financial support from the federal government to help put you through school. So it's not the school saying, I'm going to lose money by paying for these students to go through school. It's the federal government saying, hey, I'm going to give you some money to help these students so they can go to school, so that they can work during school. So there's different qualifications for different education institutions, so not everybody's the same, and there's usually a limited number. So just because you could get a job at the university or at SEC doesn't mean it's a work study. It's a particular job that you have to qualify for various reasons. So ask about it though, it's worth trying. We've talked about the Pell Grants. Those are eligible. You have to fill out the FAFSA, that free application. They will literally tell you in your awards letter how much you qualify for Pell Grant awards. So the amounts vary. It'll vary from year to year, your situations. That's why they make you fill it out so much, but it's worth it in the end. And most schools make you do it anyway. Pell Grant eligibility, they're going to talk about your family household income and how much they expect you to pay, or your family, which is often, so my family is a really big family and my dad only worked, and they used to say, oh, because of my dad's income, he should have to pay this much of my college, but they couldn't do it because we had a big family. So sometimes, even though FAFSA says that the expectation is you should put in this much money towards school, not everybody could do that. So it's not always an option for everyone, which is fine. Whoops. They look at the cost to attend your college. So depending on the college you go to, it's gonna range if you're a full-time or part-time. So part-time students get less than full-time. If you've been attending a year or less, they want to know your commitment level. Are you going to stick around? And then you can apply at studentaid.gov. Studentaid.gov is also one of the, it's the main site for FAFSA, but gives a lot of information. Like that should just be bookmarked on your computer, because when in doubt, they will tell you what to do. Private loans, we've really talked about this a lot. Those must be repaid. This is not a scholarship. Loans are loans. You have to pay it back plus interest. And these financial institutions that do private get to determine what it costs to pay it back, how you're paying it back, when you're paying it back. So they can make a lot more rules around it. But sometimes they'll just offer a lower interest rate just to get you in there. So definitely look into your private loans a lot at repayment. That's really key, is what does repayment look like? Is it now or later? How much? Private loans come from banks, credit unions, student loan, state loan programs like Nelnet or Navient would be private institutions. And then sometimes universities actually fund their own loans if you need to. How the private loans work is the money is sent to the college that you're going to. So you go apply for this loan and they send it directly to the school. It's not like it's coming into your bank account and you're paying the school. It goes directly to the school. It's always best to apply for federal loans first, because they're just all around better, especially when it comes to repayment. And repayment is important for all you young folks, because when you get out of college, you're likely not going to be making the amount of money you want to make. I feel like a lot of colleges and universities set people up to believe that if you have a college degree, you're going to get this awesome job right out of college, and you likely will not. And so you can't necessarily afford to pay back your student loans right away. Now, some people can. I get it. Sometimes you are, especially if you're in the tech industry, usually that's, right out the door, you're making pretty good money, but not everybody does. And so repayment is super important, because on average, and UNL their career services just told me this, it takes an average of 9 months after graduation to find a job within your field. So during that time, if your expectation is that you have to pay back your loan and you don't have any money, that's where the repayment is really important, is what am I going to do if I can't pay back my loan? So ask that when you're taking out the loan. Private loans typically have higher interest rates. Repayment plans differ. You may need a cosigner for eligibility. So that means somebody else who comes in and says, I'll take on this loan if this person can't. So there's 2 people on the loan, you and your parents, you and whomever else, that are saying together we can afford to pay this back, and that's our promise. So sometimes they just need better credit to be eligible for this loan, and credit is a whole nother conversation I don't think we've had yet, but we will. But sometimes it takes a cosigner for eligibility. And then every provider has different repayment plans. So if you are looking at private loans at different companies, they're going to be different. So don't just talk to one and assume everyone is the same. They're going to be completely different. Federal loans are given by the federal government. For college, you must fill out the Fafsa form, that form we talked about. They often have better extension programs for repayment. So maybe they say, you have, most of them say this, you could graduate, and then from graduation date, you have 6 months before you need to repay you need to pay on the loan. This is so you can get a job and get settled, because life has changed for you. But a lot of times they realize that's not happening for everyone. So they have different repayment plans. So they'll let you wait another 3 months or another year even. So they have the ability to give better, and they give better repayment plans. They usually don't consider your credit score when taking out the loan, which is big for students, because usually young adults they either don't have credit established or it's not that great yet. So federal loans are not dominated by your credit score, which is really nice. They will affect your credit score, but you don't have to have a really great one going into it, which is nice. Parrot Plus loans, I'm going to kind of skip through these. That's when your parent or a guardian takes out a loan in their name only on your behalf so that you go to school. But that's between you and the parent who pays it back. So some parents can afford to put their student through college, but they take out a loan so they could just pay a little bit at a time. For me, that was never the case. I have to pay back all of my loans. My parents won't do that. And then some parents just can't do this, and that's okay. It's just there for an option. The Stafford loan is one of those that you should definitely aim for. Fixed rate, so it's not going to change. You're going to pay back a certain amount and that's not going to change for you. And it's a federal loan, so the repayment plans are a lot different. And then the direct subsidized loans, also a lot better, but there's a lot more eligibility that goes into this. And then unsubsidized loans, there's no financial need requirement. So anyone could get an unsubsidized loan, but the school determines how much you can borrow based on your attendance, how long have you been there, and financial aid. You must pay interest on the loan during all periods. So if you're in school, you still have to pay your interest back. So this is one of those unsubsidized that if you can't afford to pay anything during college, don't get an unsubsidized loan, because you have to pay something on it. And the repayment options, I keep pushing this, and I've had Nelnet tell me to push it. Repayment options are should be the biggest factor in what kind of loan you're taking out. Because for most people, you're broke after college for a little while until you find your job. And so repayment, if it's 6 months or a year out, you have a buffer period. If it's right now or interest rate right now, it's definitely, you've got to look at repayment options before you agree to take out the loan, because it will be huge. Federal loan borrowers. So if you do take out those federal loans, usually you can get a lot more debt forgiveness. So they're going to write off your loan. They're just going to forgive you after a certain amount of time. It could be 5 to 10 years. Teachers have really great advantage to get their loans forgiven. Public service, so social services also, if you work for a nonprofit for 10 years straight and you could prove it, by the end of 10 years, federal loans will just completely throw away the rest of what you owe them. So you'll pay on them for 10 years, but then you could get that forgiven, which is really nice. And then there are student loan forgiveness programs that are out there that vary. They're not the public service or the teacher stuff, but it's worth looking into that. And then there is an option for income-based repayment. This is an option that's really great too, because if you make a certain amount, you only have to pay back a certain amount. And then when you make more, you pay back a little bit more. So as your income goes up, that's when they make your repayment plan bigger and bigger. So it's really nice for after college when you're not making a whole lot of money, because then you don't have to pay that much on your loan. But just know, as your income increases, so does your payment. So it kind of goes along with that, which not a lot of people like, because they're used to paying this really low amount. And then suddenly they get a raise at work and their student loans bumped up. So it really doesn't feel like you earned much more because you're paying it out. So you got to be careful with that too. It sounds really nice on the beginning side, but not in the middle and end. I have all these resources. This will come with that, Sarah. Federal Student Aid, Nelnet, Sallie Mae, Navient, Ascent, Education Quest is a great one that actually Nelnet, I believe they run it. But it's a really great education site to get educated in the loans and scholarships and anything student related when it comes to aid. So look at Education Quest, definitely. But there's all these places that give loans or that can help you navigate through that. I'm a big fan of calling Nelnet. They're local, but they're also a national company, but they're based here. And that's really great. They're owned by, they're owned by a very great family here in Lincoln. And they definitely pride themselves on like customer service and stuff. So they're a great company to work with. Even if you just call them and ask questions, you don't have to have your loan through them, but you could just say, I'm going to have a loan. I just need some information. They're going to be really great about doing that. And if you want a direct phone number, I can give it to you. I've worked with some really great people over there. So, and fun fact, I personally don't even have my student loans through Nelnet, but if I could do it again, I would go through Nelnet because I have not had the same kind of experience with the company that I work with. So I've felt that just my working with Nelnet professionally, I think they do a phenomenal job when it comes to explaining what people are getting into, which is super important. But that's it. That's my really long-winded student aid presentation. There's a lot of information packed in here. Don't feel like you have to take it in at once, but definitely look at the resources and ask questions. Figure out what's right for you. Meet with your advisor at school. They're going to know what questions to ask and then lead you to the right resources to get resources to help you pay for school. So don't be afraid to ask the questions. Take it from someone who did not ask questions when I was there. I'm paying for it now because I just took out loans and walked away, but I didn't ask any of the details. I didn't apply for scholarships. I didn't look at grants. Pell Grants were the only ones that I would look at. And I wasted a lot of money. I'm wasting a lot of money where there was probably a scholarship out there for me and I just didn't know about it. So ask questions, find that free money, ask your PALS worker, ask me. You could call me at the bank anytime. You don't even have to be a UBT customer. That's okay. I'll answer your questions and point you in the right direction. So this is a big one. Moral of the whole story here, ask questions because you will benefit from that when you graduate and you will have asked those questions and know what's coming when it comes to loans. So any questions from those on this call? Nope. Okay. Well, it has been a joy once again to work with you, pals. You guys are great at what you do and what you're doing. So thank you for all the leaders here that are taking notes to help your pals students get through college, having less loans and financial burdens on themselves. So I could definitely help you all individually. If there's like a certain situation that comes up, I could probably point you in the right direction to get some added help depending on the need that your student has. So definitely ask questions and reach out. So thank you all for joining me today. Everybody have a lovely evening.
Thank you. Our next training is Tuesday, March 16th. So I wanted to point out that it is a Tuesday, not a Wednesday, like they normally